Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're really getting into the weeds on something specific, and this is aimed squarely at you, our listeners who are experienced technologists, developers in the crypto space, folks who know their way around hardware security and wallets.
That's right.
Our mission today, deep guidance. We want to walk through recovering a ledger CTEX, specifically one set up with a passphrase attached PIN using the original seed.
Huh?
And not just how, but also quantify the actual security boost you get from that setup. Plus, we'll unpack how plausible deniability really works in this context.
Yeah, this isn't the 101 overview. We're assuming, the basics of seed phrases, hardware wallets, that kind of thing.
Exactly. We're going straight to the advanced features. So let's start with that recovery process. What are the core components we need?
Okay, so fundamentally, recovery boils down to two things you absolutely must have. Your original 24-word seed phrase, the BIP39 mnemonic,
Right.
and the specific passphrase you used. BIP39 is great because it means you can derive everything from that one phrase, makes backup simpler.
And that passphrase, it's often called the 25th word, but it does much more than just add a word, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. It's not just like adding a password on top. When you combine that passphrase with the 24 words, it cryptographically generates an entirely different master seed. A new 512-bit BIP39 seed, actually.
Meaning a completely separate set of private keys and addresses?
Precisely. It's like it creates a whole parallel set of accounts linked to that original mnemonic, plus the passphrase. Without the exact passphrase, those accounts are simply, inaccessible. They don't even appear to exist from the perspective of just the 24 words.
And when you say exact,
I mean, exact character for character.
please insist.
Case sensitive. A single typo, a wrong capitalization, even an extra space you didn't intend.
And you're accessing a different wallet, potentially an empty one you didn't even know you created, or just nothing.
Exactly. It demands absolute precision in how you record and store it. There's no room for error.
Okay, that precision is clear. So, how does this play out in the actual recovery procedure on, say, a new or reset ledger Sandshax? What are the steps, keeping security best practices front and center?
Right, first things first. The environment. Ideally, you're entering this directly on the ledger device itself. If, for some reason, you needed an intermediate step involving a computer, which I generally advise against, for the passphrase itself, it must be air-gapped, no question.
Keep it off the network. Got it.
So you start the recovery process on the Sandshax. You'll first enter your 24-word seed phrase. That restores the basic device, the accounts associated only with those 24 words.
Okay, the primary accounts are back. How do you bring the passphrase protected accounts online?
This is where Ledger's implementation is quite neat. After the initial restore, you go into the device settings, specifically into the security options, and there's a feature to attach a passphrase to a secondary peon.
Ah, so you're not entering the passphrase every time.
No, you set it up once, you choose your passphrase, confirm it, and then you associate it with a completely separate peon code from your main one. So then unlocking the device determines which wallet you access.
Exactly. Boot up the stacks, enter your regular PIN. You see the accounts derived only from the 24 words. Enter the secondary PIN you link to the passphrase. Boom. You access the hidden accounts derived from the 24 words plus that specific passphrase.
And verification is key after setting this up or recovering, I assume.
Absolutely. Once you've gone through the recovery and set up the secondary PIN, you unlock with that secondary PIN and verify that the addresses showing up are the ones you expect for your passphrase protected funds. Always verify.
And the golden rule that applies to both the seed and the passphrase.
Never, ever, ever type them into any internet-connected device. No computer browser, no phone app, no cloud notes. Keep them physically secure and offline, period. The moment they touch a connected environment, consider them potentially compromised.
Okay, let's pivot a bit. We understand the how. Let's talk about the why in terms of security uplift. For someone technically minded, how much more secure does this passphrase layer actually make you? Can we quantify it?
That's a great question. The core benefit is protection against seed phrase compromise. Look, your 24-word seed already represents 256 bits of entropy. If generated correctly, that's astronomically secure against brute force, basically uncrackable.
So the passphrase isn't primarily about making the seed itself harder to guess.
Not directly, no. It's about what happens if, somehow, despite your best efforts, your 24-word seed is compromised. Maybe physical theft, maybe a very sophisticated targeted attack, who knows?
Okay.
If an attacker gets those 24 words, but not the passphrase, they can restore your primary wallet. They'll see whatever funds you keep there. but the funds secured by the passphrase, completely invisible and inaccessible to them. It's a crucial fallback layer.
So it compartmentalizes the risk. Even a catastrophic failure on the seed phrase front doesn't mean total loss if you've used a strong passphrase.
Precisely. Now, about quantifying. It really comes down to the strength of the passphrase itself.
Right, because if the attacker has the seed, their next target is the passphrase, assuming they know or suspect one exists. How hard is that to crack?
Well, if your passphrase is weak, a dictionary word, a common name, password 123, it could potentially be brute forced relatively quickly, maybe hours or days, especially if they have the seed and maybe even a target address derived from it.
But a strong one.
A strong passphrase changes the game entirely. Think random characters, upper, lower, numbers, symbols. Even something relatively short, say 9 or 10 characters, generated randomly, makes brute forcing incredibly difficult and time-consuming. We're talking potentially years, decades, or longer, even with significant computational resources. The work factor increases exponentially with length and complexity.
So the strength is directly proportional to the time it buys you, or potentially makes the attack infeasible.
Exactly. It shifts the security burden from just the seed phrase's secrecy to also the passphrase's strength and secrecy.
Does it offer any protection against more exotic threats, maybe theoretical weaknesses in the hardware RNG or sophisticated side channel attacks, stuff that keeps security researchers up at night?
That's getting into the deeper aspects, yeah. So ledger devices like these attacks use secure elements certified to high standards like CCEAL6+A. These are specifically designed to resist tampering and information leakage, even physical attacks. They also run a custom OS, BUROS, for isolation.
Very robust then.
Extremely robust.
Right.
The Ledger Donjon team actively tries to break this stuff constantly. However, hypothetically, if there were some unknown vulnerability, maybe in the initial RNG seed generation, or a sophisticated side channel attack that somehow leaked information, the passphrase adds another layer.
How so?
Because the final keys depend not just on the potentially compromised initial seed from the device, but also on the external entropy you introduce with the passphrase. It adds a user-supplied element to the key derivation that's independent of the device's internal processes at seed generation time. So it provides an extra buffer against certain theoretical hardware or implementation flaws.
Interesting. An extra layer of defense in depth, even against highly unlikely scenarios.
Precisely. Defense in depth is the name of the game in security.
Okay, let's move on to maybe the most intriguing feature enabled by this. Plausible deniability. What does this actually mean in practice for a crypto holder?
Plausible deniability in this context is essentially the ability to convincingly deny that an attacker has accessed your main stash of funds.
How does that work?
Imagine the worst-case scenario. Physical coercion. Someone forces you to unlock your device or hand over your recovery phrase. This is often called the $5 wrench attack.
Right. A nightmare scenario.
With a passphrase setup linked to a secondary PIN, you can comply, but strategically. You enter your main PIN or provide the 24-word seed phrase. This gives the attacker access to the primary wallet.
The one without the passphrase.
Exactly. Now, crucially, you should keep a non-trivial but not life-altering amount of crypto in this primary wallet, enough to be convincing. The attacker sees this, believes they've gotten everything, and hopefully leaves.
Meanwhile, the bulk of your assets, secured by the passphrase and accessible only via that secondary PIN, remains untouched and unknown to the attacker.
That's the core idea. You reveal a wallet, just not the wallet. Ledger's secondary PIN feature makes this very practical. Unlock with PIN A, you get wallet A. Unlock with PIN B, you get hidden wallet B.
Can you take this further? What about using multiple passphrases?
Yes, that's an advanced strategy. You can actually set up multiple passphrases, each linked to a different secondary PI, though managing many PINs gets tricky. Or, more commonly, different passphrases used during recovery lead to different wallets.
Why would you do that?
Well, imagine an attacker who is sophisticated enough to know about the passphrase feature. They might demand the passphrase too. If you have multiple hidden wallets, you could potentially reveal a second decoy wallet, one with a more substantial amount than the primary, but still not your main holding.
Layers of decoys.
Exactly. Layer 1, primary PIN, shows $1,000. Layer 2, secondary PIN 1 with passphrase decoy 1, shows $10,000. Layer 3, secondary PIN 2 with passphrase real deal, holds the main stash and is never revealed. It increases the complexity and psychological defense against a determined attacker.
That's quite sophisticated. But is there a risk that as more people learn about passphrases, this deniability becomes less plausible?
That's a valid point. The effectiveness certainly relies partly on the attacker's ignorance or assumptions. As knowledge spreads, a savvy attacker might suspect a passphrase is in use. However, even then, it still forces them to extract more information, the correct passphrase, under duress, which might not always be feasible for them. It still adds friction and a layer of protection, even if it's not foolproof against every single conceivable scenario forever.
It's an evolving landscape for sure. Now, we've focused heavily on the device features, but good security is holistic, right? What are the critical surrounding practices, especially for technically savvy users?
Absolutely critical. The hardware wallet, like the Stack Axe, with its secure element and specialized OS, is your vault door. It keeps keys offline. But you still need secure practices around it.
Starting with the storage of the seed phrase and the passphrase themselves, what's non-negotiable?
Offline storage. Full stop. No digital copies on any connected device, no cloud storage, no password managers for the seed itself, no photos on your phone. Physical offline backups are the only way.
What about the physical methods? Paper is okay, but
Paper works, but it's vulnerable to fire, water, degradation. Metal backups, things like crypto steel, billfold, crypto tag, are far more resilient to physical damage, stamping your seed into steel plates.
and redundancy.
Definitely. Don't keep your only copy in one place. Consider splitting backups between secure, geographically separate locations, maybe a main copy at home in a fireproof safe, another offsite, like a bank deposit box or with a trusted family member, depending on your threat model.
What about digital offline storage, like encrypted USBs? You mentioned air-gapped systems earlier.
You can, but be very cautious. Use strong encryption, obviously. But NAND flash memory on USBs and SD cards isn't designed for super long-term archival storage without power. Data can degrade over years, maybe 5, maybe 10, maybe less. If you use this method, you need a process to regularly verify and duplicate the data, say every couple of years, on a secure, air-gapped machine. Metal is generally simpler and more reliable long-term.
And Shamir's secret sharing, is that something people should consider?
For the truly security conscious, yes. SSS lets you split your seed phrase into multiple shares. For example, split it into 5 shares where any 3 are needed to reconstruct the original seed. You can then store these shares in different locations. Compromise of 1 or even 2 shares reveals nothing. It significantly increases resilience against theft or loss of a single backup.
Complex but powerful. Another risk area, supply chain, buying the hardware itself.
Huge potential issue. Always buy directly from Ledger or an explicitly authorized reseller listed on their site. Never from eBay, Amazon Marketplace, from unknown sellers, or random websites, because intermediaries could potentially tamper with the device before it reaches you. Install malicious firmware, pre-seed it, physically alter it, even if it looks okay initially.
So check the packaging meticulously. Seals intact.
Yes, check for any signs of tampering. And crucially, when you set up a new ledger, it performs a genuineness check with Ledger servers. Pay attention to that. And never use a recovery phrase that comes pre-printed in the box. The device must generate a fresh one for you during setup, or you must recover using your own existing phrase.
Okay, besides hardware and backups, what general crypto hygiene should experts always practice?
Multi-factor authentication everywhere. On exchanges, on related services. Use strong, unique passwords managed by a reputable password manager. But again, not for your seed phrase.
What about the environment for transactions?
Try to use a dedicated, clean machine or at least a separate browser profile for crypto activities. Reduces the risk of malware or phishing extensions grabbing sensitive data. Be incredibly wary of phishing emails, fake websites, malicious pop-ups trying to get you to connect your wallet or sign transactions.
Ledger Live's clear signing helps there, right? Showing what you actually signing.
Yes, that's a vital feature. Because you approve the final transaction on the hardware device itself, clear signing aims to show you in plain language what the transaction does, sending funds, interacting with a contract. Always carefully review that on the device screen before confirming. Understand what permissions you're granting to smart contracts.
And that brings up smart contract risk itself. The ledger protects the keys, but interacting with a bad contract can still drain funds approved by you.
Exactly. The device can't know if a contract is inherently malicious or flawed.
Hmm.
So risk management is key. Consider segregating your assets on the ledger. Have one set of accounts that are purely for long-term cold storage, just sending and receiving.
Making them isolated.
Right. And use separate accounts for DeFi, NFTs, Web3 apps, where you're interacting with contracts more frequently. If one of those accounts gets compromised due to a contract interaction, it doesn't necessarily impact your main stash. It's about limiting the blast radius.
Wow, we've certainly covered a lot of ground. From the nitty-gritty of stacks recovery with passphrases,
To quantifying that security boost, looking at brute force resistance, and even theoretical attack vectors.
and then unpacking the strategic value and implementation of plausible deniability, plus those crucial surrounding security practices.
It really underscores that even for those of us deep in the tech, security is multi-layered. It's the hardware, the software features like passphrases, and your personal operational security. They all have to work together.
It's definitely not set and forget. Constant vigilance and adaptation are key in this space.
Yeah.
So, looking ahead, considering how quickly both the defenses and the attack methods evolve, where do you see the balance shifting in decentralized asset security? How do we keep innovating while ensuring users can maintain that self-sovereignty and manage their risk effectively? That's something to ponder.